show where we discuss the thoughts that inch their way into our brain and keep us up when we should be sleeping. I'm your host, Razlo, and tonight I have psychology professor and host of Tuesday Night Podcast, Alan Gerding, on the show to help keep me up. Tonight we're going to discuss such topics as, is cereal soup? What part of a combiner robot would you want to control? And we try to solve the straw issue. Please enjoy. Alan? I think I drank a little too much. I didn't realize that you'd be sleeping in my bed tonight.
What? Yeah. Of course. Why wouldn't I be?
I mean, it was totally intentional. It had nothing to do with what I drank. This is exactly what I wanted to have happen. But since you are here, this happens to me a lot, and I apologize to you as I do anyone that slept with me.
Yeah, after a long night of passionate love, I really prefer sleep. So make this quick, would you? Unlike what just happened.
I just need to get some thoughts off my brain so that I can sleep restfully, and maybe you have something else that you have to talk about as well, and we can just help each other out as we helped each other out earlier.
Okay, well, how long is this going to take? Because I want to get my Z's.
Just probably like, half a dozen or so issues.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll stop being comfortable. Let's do this. What's keeping you up at night, Razlo?
So it's just important stuff. I was thinking about that show Turbo Teen, where the kid turned into a car.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, if you had the ability to turn into a car, would you let your friends ride inside of you?
It would depend on the friends, because is it one of the slob friends that's going to eat inside of me? That's going to leave a marshmallow in the seat and let it cook in the sun, so now I'm just cooked in marshmallow? Or just the phrase "eat inside of me." Yeah, I know. But that's what we're talking about, right?
No, I understand.
I guess the other question too is, do I have a nervous system where I feel every little ass in me? Or is this where I don't feel the poop sliding out of me inside my human body? So what do I feel them inside me when they're sitting in me?
What I found interesting was your first thing was, how are their manners, which totally makes sense. Mm-hmm. My first question was, what body parts are making up the upholstery and stuff? I was like, this is like the more important factor, was like,
yeah,
are they sitting inside my butt? Are they where does this stuff go?
I just assumed uterus. The whole carriage inside is uterus. That's what I would have thought.
The male uterus?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we're looking like lower abdomen area, and that's where they're just nestled inside of me. But wait, do they control me? Is this a type of, I think it was a movie. There's so many movies where
I felt like it was if I remember correctly, and I haven't seen this show since I think it originally aired and watching random videos on YouTube, but I think that they would control the kid car.
Yeah.
But that at any point he could control himself. So it was kind of like for your convenience, I'll let you drive me, but I can
take over whenever I want to.
Whenever I want, I believe.
What was the name of that car? I want to say Kirby, but I know that's a video game character and not. I can't remember the name of the car.
Kit is.
No, I'm not talking about Knight Rider. I'm talking about Lindsay Lohan was in the remake of it.
Oh, Herbie.
You
were close.
Yeah, Herbie. Oh my goodness. I don't think I'd want.
That was a little different though. That was like a sentient car. That was.
Well, same thing with Kit.
Kit was a sentient car, but the Turbo Teen thing was like,
a person.
I'm a normal human kid and I could somehow transform into a car.
Man.
And I feel like people would wonder if you had motivations. If you were like, hey,
come on in.
I was thinking you could save some money on gas. Why don't you just ride me for a while? It just...
that's a good point. If it's your rectum and them moving around causes uncontrollable orgasms, that's a different story than if it's in your uterus, your womb.
I mean, either way, it's a strange thing to invite people in, even though it follows car procedure that people ride on the inside. But
Right.
yeah, I think it would have to be someone that, I mean, definitely the obvious thing is my wife would have a pass to ride my car body.
Yeah.
No matter the situation. So that's
Agreed.
a definite.
Wait,
And then
time out.
Wait, yeah.
You're married? What are we doing?
She fell asleep on the couch. I'm sorry.
I mean, you give her a pass for riding inside of you, but did she give a pass for us to be in bed together right now?
She said it's okay that I have other people in bed as long as I podcast with them.
Okay, cool.
So it's,
Right.
it's
My wife doesn't
very
know about this,
particular rules.
so we're part of the
Okay,
underground, whether you like it or not. We're part of the underground. Let's have a sleepover type
I
thing.
I won't tell her to subscribe. I won't tell her to smash the like button.
Right. Hit the bell icon.
Yeah. Just fondle the bell. Yeah, so I think that it might not even matter if we're talking about, our married selves.
Right.
It might not even matter who I'd be okay with being inside me as a car. If my wife was like, listen, I saw how you transformed. I see where they're sitting. Not okay. It might just be a no-go from the beginning.
I think that's a really important question. If we can transform back and forth, what happens when we transform when someone's inside of us?
I imagine like they fall off of the mounds of moving flesh would be my hope. The nightmare scenario is that they're between shoulder blades or something.
If we're being as honest as possible, and if this is what gets me to sleep at night, I would err on the side of caution and not let anyone inside of me, even my own wife, even you, Razlo, just because I wouldn't know what the hell was going on.
How about this? We do a test where we put like a dozen eggs, a bag of chips, like random things like on the different seats.
Right.
And then see what happens to them after we've transformed.
Right. Just like they do in science, you slowly upgrade into something that's more and more human-like.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We move up to family pets and things before.
Right. Not my family pets.
Eventually,
some other ones, because just in case.
Whenever there's the stray that keeps taking a dump in my kid's sandbox, we put that in the car, and we see what happens when I transform. And as long as everything works out okay, then we can say, okay, finally we've done the trials. You can take a seat inside me now.
Yeah.
So
I think we're in agreement.
That's totally solved. Which I didn't think we'd come to a unanimous decision on.
Wait, hold on. I'm glad we came to a decision, but now that we're talking about it, there's a few things that keep me up at night that I haven't squared away. I'm hoping you can help me out.
Well, you were saying before we fell asleep that you were kind of hungry. You're talking something about sandwiches.
Oh, I think what you're referring to is the cereal, because what I was concerned about is whenever I eat cereal, and boy do I love cereal, I'm thinking, does this qualify as soup? Is cereal soup?
Okay. I found this on the web.
Oh my goodness, Siri thinks I'm talking to her because I said the word cereal. Apparently, I need to kill Siri. I keep her under the covers with Siri? Me. I just sleep with Siri under the covers, but
okay.
She has since been silenced.
People have very close relationships with their phones. I understand. Soup. What is the? I wish I had a.
Well, let me ask you. I can simplify it for you if you'd like me to.
Sure.
All right.
What's the definition of a soup?
Exactly. This is where we need to go, Razlo. What is the definition of soup? For instance, does soup have to be hot?
I don't know. I think the answer to that is definitely no, because don't they have some soups that are cold?
I'm not civilized or cultured
cold
enough to name any of them, but yes, and you could have hot cereal.
I've heard a lot of other terms, different soup terms, and I fear throwing one of them out because I'll probably be laughed out of the next soupery that I head to, and I don't want that to happen. But I feel like there is some type of, once again, I don't have Google in front of me, but I feel like there is some type of soup that's served cold. So I don't think, and also
we've seen Batman, right? In Batman Begins, The original Batman with Michael Keaton. He takes a bit of soup, says, "Oh, Alfred, it's cold." And then Alfred says, "It's shmishmishmishmishmish." And that's the type of soup that's cold.
Well, see, that's the thing. If we were doing a podcast with Alfred, this would be answered already.
If only we were in bed with Alfred.
He would have this kind of information. He's a distinguished man, unlike us. So the cold doesn't make a difference.
Right, so next.
The ingredients.
Yes.
What do soups have? They have vegetables, meats, pastas, rice. But what is the difference between you throwing a bunch of Rice Krispies in some milk versus like a rice soup?
Right.
Other than the fact that the rice is puffed. And the puffing, I wouldn't think would make it all of a sudden be, okay, this can't be a soup now.
Right. I would, absolutely. In fact, that sounds really interesting. I would love puffed rice in soup instead of regular rice just to see what that was like. I would try that. Would you try that?
I think it would work out because puffed rice doesn't usually have like the strongest of tastes.
Yeah.
And so it'd probably just add like some crunch to, the soup that you were eating, at least at the start. And then when it wasn't, it would be kind of closer to the feeling you get having, regular rice in a soup anyway.
Razzle, you bring up an amazing point because I've had many people refer to cereal that has gone soggy as cereal soup, which makes me think, is it the texture then that defines soup from cereal?
Is there a crunchy soup? That's a good question. I don't think that there is.
So I guess cereal is not soup until it gets soggy.
Yeah, maybe that's the defining thing that makes it happen because every soup, it's the ingredients are cooking in the broth, in this case the milk, for an extended period of time, and they absorb some of that broth and they soften, and then that's what makes a good soup. If someone handed you some soup and they hadn't heated it at all, and it was just, a bunch of uncooked vegetables and uncooked pastas or uncooked rice, you would be like, this is the worst soup I've ever had in my life.
But you'd still call it soup.
It would still be soup. It'd be, wow, that's interesting, because you'd still call it soup. You'd just be like, this is awful soup.
Right.
So maybe cereal, before it gets soggy, is bad soup.
And then once it gets soggy, it's still bad soup? Because I thought you were going
It's still bad soup in a different way.
Maybe I thought you were venturing into the operational definition being that the ingredients have to be cooked. But realistically, cereal ingredients are cooked. They're just pre-cooked.
It doesn't, I don't know if it has to be cooked, because aren't there certain like full liquid soups that you could make? I don't know, maybe.
I mean, who hasn't eaten soup out of a can before, especially when they came out with that Campbell's Hungry, where it's just full, it's so good, just right out of the can.
But I'm saying at some point they made that soup, and I'm trying to think, does every single, like even when you make a tomato soup or another type of soup, do you always have to heat it first to get it to the soup consistency? Or is there ever a soup where it's just you take a liquid version of X ingredient and without any work done to it, it's immediately a soup?
I don't think the question's important, because when it comes to cereal as soup, there's a lot of work that's always done with cereal.
But I'm saying the heating part, right?
Right.
Because I'm saying even a tomato soup, I think a lot of times they have to heat it to get it to the consistency that they want.
But I think that's true for cereal, because all that stuff is baked. When you look at the grains and even like grape nuts, that stuff is cooked, even though it's just crunchy marbles. You
don't think that the cooking process has to happen when the ingredients are joined? You're saying that just because of the cooking happened beforehand, it still counts as cooking?
Oh my goodness, are we gonna stay up all night? I think to help us sleep at night, I like the conclusion we came to previously, which is that cereal is cereal until it's soggy, because it's the consistency that counts. And as soon as you take some soup and you get a nice crunch in it, you can say, this is not fucking soup.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, cool.
I think we'll get there. I actually, though, you had something that you were wondering about with sandwiches that you totally...
Oh, yeah. Now I know what you were fishing for. We did talk about this. I totally grabbed the wrong bait and went with the other way. You're talking about Hitler's sandwich.
I mean, you were talking
Well,
about
yes,
that.
you were trying to get me to talk about Hitler's sandwich. Here's my question.
Sure.
We're getting dark. It's nighttime,
All
so
right.
maybe it's apropos.
Is that a rye? What kind of pumpernickel?
I don't
What is
know,
it?
but
What
there
is
is
it?
no Hitler sandwich.
bread.
But let's imagine.
Okay. Yeah.
Dark bread. I see where you went there. So let's imagine that Hitler made a sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
Would you eat it? Especially if it was delicious.
Man, so many really bad jokes set up with this particular question.
Yeah.
That oh man, wow. It's I know what I shouldn't say.
What shouldn't you say?
Oh man, just in terms of what's on the sandwich.
Oh,
in
I
terms
see where
of,
you're going with this, sir.
In terms of
We'll say it was like during Hitler's
whether it's a
painting
Quiznos type scenario.
Right. Because here's the thing. Obviously, this lends itself to real-world questions. For instance, people really love Chick-fil-A, but people
Right.
also don't want to support anti-LGBTQ plus individuals. And most people understand nowadays that Chick-fil-A directly takes some of
Right.
their profits to anti-LGBTQ propaganda. So, would you still eat Chick-fil-A? But let's get to Hitler, though.
Well, you know, I don't eat Chick-fil-A, so
I don't either.
It would be strange for me to then say yes to a Hitler sandwich. I imagine that even if we take, even if I'm just being practical about it, and let's say it's before things have gone really south, we're back in time, and
It's young Hitler.
It's young Hitler,
Okay.
yes, coming to CBS this fall, and he goes to make me a sandwich. If I'm looking at what else this guy is doing, you know, he's rallying crowds in a really scary way, even before he got way over the edge, and he's making really shitty art. Mm-hmm. You know, so I'm going to assume that either he's going to have ill intentions, as with the other things that he's doing, or if he's treating it like his art, if he considers himself a sandwich artist,
Right.
that it's going to be a shitty sandwich.
Just because he's a
But-
shitty person?
So I want to say, because I imagine he's as shitty at making sandwiches as he is at, you know, at making art.
But I'm saying
know,
you take a bite of this thing and you find out it's delicious.
So someone else tells me, okay, in your scenario, someone else tells me,
This is a
the
delicious
best-
sandwich. And you don't even know, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe you're like, whoa, wow, I've never tried such a combination of flavors on my tongue from a single sandwich before. What kind of sandwich is this? And they say, it's a Hitler sandwich.
yeah. I think, weirdly, I would say yes to eating a sandwich made of, with like human meat on the inside if the situation were right. But in this instance, I don't think that there's ever a situation where I could say yes to the Hitler sandwich, even if it was delicious.
I think for me, there's a lot of things that go into it that I would have to know, because it's not an easy question. For instance, is he profiting from this? For instance, am I at home and can I replicate the sandwich with knowing the ingredients? Can I just use the Hitler recipe
Right.
to make the sandwich?
Yeah, mine sandwich.
This is how you got me to get into bed with you. Scenes like that. Like sandwich.
It's just it was a whole book full of sandwich recipes.
Yeah.
And it was a lot less popular. And if only people would have shown interest in his sandwiches, maybe we would have been in a very different place.
His recipe book is actually a recipe on how to take over all of the recipes. So this is the only recipe that anyone will ever follow ever again.
It's a book with one recipe.
Oh man. I will tell you, I love shame eating, and this I have a long history of this, of sneaking away and eating. So
Yeah.
I would openly say, no, I will never because you're talking to a vegan. I'm not sure if you know this. You're sleeping next to a vegan tonight. So obviously,
okay. Finally, I could cross that off the list.
Yes, now you've got that on your sexual checklist. So
right.
Obviously, I try to eat conscientiously.
Yeah.
And I don't sneak any pork in the middle of the night or anything like that.
Yeah.
But let's suppose the Hitler sandwich was vegan and it was contemporary, and I just knew that he made this delicious sandwich.
Yeah.
I would probably make it and add one thing or take one thing away, even if it was just totally superficial, where I put less salt in it or something, and I would say,
no, totally different.
It's a freedom sandwich, yo. No.
It's totally different.
Totally
it's not
different.
at all the same. What do you mean?
You're like, this is a Hitler sandwich. What are you, fascist? What's going on? Oh, man, it's tough.
That's like, when I get a Red Bull and vodka, I like to put grenadine in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think anyone cares enough to make that called a separate drink, or enough people do it. So it's.
But you could if people judged you so much for it. If Hitler made the Red Bull and vodka and you added grenadine, you can say, it's not a Hitler. It's not a Hitler.
Yeah.
It's a Stalin.
I never heard about it. I was way into this before I found out about that, and I'm not going to change it for him.
Yeah. Huh.
Sticking with, things that could be potentially morbid, I was wondering, you and I are both creative individuals.
Well, thank you.
We design games, and I was wondering, this doesn't have to be a game to your answer, but I was wondering if you knew you were going to die, but you also knew you had enough time to do one last project.
Oh, man.
What would your last... And this is assuming that people feel bad for you.
Oh, meaning like I could get a lot of attention through pity through this.
They're like, we'll definitely put it out, so you don't have to worry about, is this thing going to sell or anything like that.
Right.
All you have to do is be like, this is my final creative statement. What is that last thing that you're going to make?
Razlo, I feel almost uncomfortable answering that question because you and I have talked in the past on individual podcasts about how sometimes people can really take your own ideas and run with them and hit market before that.
Oh, I see. I see what you're saying.
And so if I just said something that was a golden idea, like the Hitler sandwich, and then someone comes to market with the Hitler sandwich before I do, then dang it.
How about if you're vague about it? Like you talk about like theme or type of game or something like that, or like to work with someone in particular, or like whatever the thing is.
I know exactly what it would be.
Yeah.
And I don't think this is giving anything away. I would like an ARG, an alternative reality. What does the A stand for in ARG, Razlo? Is it
alternative?
I think it is alternative.
I don't know.
Alternate. Anyway, alternative reality game where there's clues hidden all over the place. And when I say all over the place, I mean all over the world.
Right.
So this way, when I pass on, I get to know that people are going to be spending a lot of fun time traveling and making new memories and meeting new people in the quest to play Alan Gerding's last social game.
It sounds good, Alan, but I think what's gonna happen is it's gonna be people going like, "What a tool!" And then
I thought you said that people would. All right.
No, I'm just kidding.
I feel like you baited and switched me there. But what would you
I'm
do?
just kidding. But that would be if you knew people would be willing though. Like that would be very cool. That you like were basically composing life experiences for people, and especially if you sent certain clues to certain people and ended up having them show up on a trip to see something amazing that you knew they'd appreciate.
Right. That's actually
I could see that
one of my favorite
really cool.
things that I like to design in a lot of my games, like Two Rooms and a Boom and Fairy Tale Betrayal and other games coming out. And we have Mothership, which is our sci-fi horror role-playing game. And when I write adventure modules, the big thing I love is dividing information. So only through collaboration can people truly figure out what's going on and have the most information and maybe even fun. So really rewarding that social interaction and bonding. So I think that would be my final project. What is the best way I could get people to happily interact? And then maybe the vain side of me would want them to say, by the way, how did we meet? Oh, have you heard of Alan Gerding? That's how we met, because of his game. That'd be awesome. What about you?
I've got two potentials here.
Okay.
One is I would love to have someone trust me to make my own Super Sentai series.
Okay.
And for those that don't know, Super Sentai
Who doesn't know what a
just
Super Sentai is? Come on.
It's just the Japanese term for Power Rangers type of show, Kamen Rider type of show. I'd be okay with it being in one of those franchises, and it'd probably be easier because, I could just kind of. And the cool thing about those shows is like every season is different characters, a different director, different writers, and a totally new conceit as to why you need to dress in spandex and helmets and things and fight things. So it actually kind of like works out perfectly, even though, I've got my own ideas of what to do. So that would be really awesome. I watch that stuff. I think it's so cool. And to watch like a bunch of stunt people and bright colors and a toy line, all this stuff, like excited kids and like nerdy adults and like whatever, like talk about this one thing that you did would be like really, really cool. Like I think it like kind of,
even if it was the Power Rangers, if you said I was responsible for the Dinozord era.
Right. And like there's always gonna be and someone with those type of things, there's always someone who it's like that's their first entry point, and so it's always gonna be the best, or there's someone who's gonna go like, man, thing really fell off, but this is secretly the best season, or like there's always those conversations with that stuff. And so it'd be cool because it wouldn't be forgotten. It would be like remembered because it's part of this ongoing series. And there's not many things in this world that people go back to look up and re-experience and check out and get educated about who made it and things like that. But when it's part of an ongoing franchise that exists beyond you, it makes it so that people will go back and check those things out as opposed to just like a one-off original thing that is not tied to anything. Like the percentage of people you'll ever touch with that is like less, which can be cool if you hit really big and make something amazing. Right. But
can I ask specifics? What?
Yeah.
What do you think you'd put in? What would your Zord be? What would be the composite?
One of my favorite one of the last Ninja like Super Sentai shows, they had a giant robot that jumped into a combination of giant robots to drive the giant robot. And then everyone was inside the smaller giant robot that was driving the combined giant robots.
Yeah.
And like, I would not necessarily do that exact thing, but I would want it to be like ridiculous, in that way. Like, too many steps would make it like I would have it so everyone got into a giant robot that was like a replica of themselves before they got into a bigger.
That's awesome.
So I just like the excessiveness and like the longer that the like. It'd probably be a cheaper show to make.
Yeah, because they always have that overhyped scene that obviously they spent a whole bunch of editing on more than the rest of the show.
Yeah.
And they just recycle it, and that's how they justify the budget money on the one scene of them assembling into whatever they're going to assemble into, their Voltron equivalent.
I want it to be like an ongoing joke that
that's like half the episode is them just...
The combination sequence takes so long that like half the time the enemies have left the battlefield, or they're bored, or they're annoyed.
Everyone's already dead.
Yes, because you spent all your time with... Why didn't you come pre-combined? What are you doing?
There's just too many steps. They're first putting on their costumes, glove on, get your wand, twirl around half naked as it forms around your boobs and your
I
butt.
like that. They're magical girls to start with.
Yes.
Just an extra layer.
Yes. Oh, man. What's your other idea? Because that one's good. I like that.
So the other one is, I've seen the success of Toy Story.
Okay.
And, I've seen like how it makes people think differently about these toys they had lying around as a kid and things like that. But it also results in people going and buying replicas of those toys and
Can
whatever.
I just time out for a second? Because I have no regrets on how I treated my toys, because even as a kid, I believe Toy Story. And I think most of us as children probably had that experience where we thought, they're alive. They have a soul, because we're dumb kids. And that's why my brother would torture me by just punching my stuffed animals or my toys or whatever. Yeah.
That's cool.
No, Mr. Floppy! Which is the real name, by the way. He's the oldest one. Still have Mr. Floppy.
Mr. Floppy, as a tribute to you, I will name one of the lead characters, Mr. Floppy, in this. And my idea is, there's a certain amount of the audience that'll watch Toy Story that's adults, even though it's aimed at kids. But I like to kind of flip it a little bit, and let's make, a Toy Story for adults. And all the toys are sex toys, and, like Mr. Floppy.
And they come alive.
And they come alive. Imagine the conversations.
Some would love their job. Some would hate their job.
Yeah. When they come alive and
my goodness.
There's the
What would the anal beads say? Would they be all for it, or would there be?
There's the toy that was the starter model.
Right.
That's upset that they're not going back to it. There's the ones that was like, oh, that was a weird phase, but then they got over it and I've never been used again.
Right.
And then there's like, the new,
Oh, this can get dark. You can have one where there's an old battery that's starting to melt inside of it. Which they haven't broached in Toy Story at all, but like, guys, I'm melting from the inside. Get it out of me. And therefore, it's back to your original idea where it's a little bit meta, where they're coming to life, but they have their own toys within them.
I don't know anyone that would pay me to make this, but
nobody.
I know some people that work in adult entertainment, and
I know I've seen the show before.
I know that they don't put any money into it, so unfortunately, I don't know who's paying for this CG thing. But let's say that somehow I got a lot of money, and maybe kickstarted it or something.
Well, this is the question: is you have an idea, no matter what, it's happening. So this is a great farewell. If it was a Toy Story with sex toys, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and my goal would be to have it be something just like Toy Story, where you're crying at the end. You got your pants around your ankles and you're crying.
That would be the best. So. They're sex toys, but you don't even you just kind of gloss over it. They're people.
Right, yeah.
They're human beings.
Thinking about it for the first half hour, and then you're fully invested in this emotional story arc that this butt plug is going.
I would watch it, for sure.
Yeah.
Not just because I know you, but...
Yeah.
Because,
I think people would watch out of curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if nothing else. So
I think you have something.
Those are my... So if anyone wants to finance either of those things, if anyone wants to put me in charge of a season of Super Sentai or give me the money to make a CG sex toy film,
my 2 cents on the Super Sentai, I've thought this, and I haven't seen this yet, because they're always about getting into things to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And you always wonder, why don't they just get big at first? But I would love to see them go the other way around, where they go smaller.
Like Ant-Man?
Yeah, and then they fight on the microbe level, where it's like, obviously we can't defeat this monster, so now we got to go into this monster and give it the worst flu it's ever had and just kill it.
That would be cool, yeah.
Yeah, and now you're fighting the microbes and the
because they always have it so like there's humans involved too, and the humans get like possessed by the evil of whatever monster.
Right.
And it would make more sense if the monster was like on a microbe level controlling, their body from the inside. And so you have to, I always love those stories where you have to go inside the body and solve the thing as a little mini ship.
I just thought though, like at the apex of one episode we're like, we can't win. They just throw the infected person into a vat of lava. Like, well, we just
think about it as well. How many explosions and things there are on those shows?
Right.
So it's like they go to take out the monster and they just blow up the heart by accident.
Yeah.
Because this giant explosion happens and they just burst out of the chest cavity.
It would totally work. Yeah, that'd be the great motif. It's in every episode. The patient zero is always dead. They just always die.
They never save them.
But it doesn't bother them because it's just par for the course at this point.
Yeah, they save the town as a whole.
Right. The world even. Yeah.
A few cracked eggs and all that.
I'd like to thank Patreon supporter Triana. She has a DJ service, does live acoustic sets, has access to a full band, and also does music lessons. You can check her out on facebook.com/Triana Music. That's TRIANA.
Speaking of the body,
yes,
and its relation to having things put in it and on it, you had some thoughts about how people put on socks and shoes.
Oh yeah, you remember this, man? You're good.
Yeah.
It's almost like we prepared this beforehand.
No, absolutely not.
So, I was at a convention recently, and I witnessed something that has really been keeping me up at night, sincerely. And that is, I saw this person put on one sock, and then a shoe, then the other sock, and then the other shoe. And I thought it was just a weird fluke, and I said, haha, that's weird. You just put on a sock, shoe, instead of sock, shoe, shoe. And the person said, that's how I always do it. And that's when I realized that person is a complete psychopath, because what justification is there to always be putting on sock, shoe, and not be a psychopath? That's my question.
I got a lot of questions.
Okay.
So I think that this makes sense if there's a scenario where this person's been homeschooled.
Okay. Just there's a culture where some weird person said, this is how we do things here.
Yeah, their parent was just like, this is the way. Yeah, and never had anyone else in society to be like, no, why are you doing that? That's a weird thing to do. That's one possible explanation where you're the first person to ever point it out to them because they don't have that much contact with people. And
just a little dab of normalcy. Boop.
Yeah, so that's one potential. It could be an OCD thing where it's like I've got to deal with everything right, everything left.
I see that, but I guess that goes back to my judgmental question: is a healthy person? What perfectly healthy person will do this on the regular?
So I want to see this person put on the rest of their clothes, because I want to see do they put their arm in the right arm sleeve and their leg in the right pants leg before they move on to the other side.
Do they do arm, head, arm, or something like that in their shirt?
Yeah, I want to see if there's a consistency to it. And then the other thing I would like to know is, let's say it's they went and visited Japan.
Okay.
And they have rules about no shoes inside the house.
Right.
In nearly every Japanese house. And so I want to see, it's morning time. It's time for them to put some clothes on. Are they not putting their socks on until they get to the shoe rack on the, about to exit the house?
This is my question is, so you keep your shoes next to your socks or your socks next to your shoes? Because how do you travel? Because for me, I do not keep them in the same place. I have to travel to my shoes. Sure, I can bring my shoes to where my socks are, but that's not the norm because shoes can get dirty. And
that's why I'm saying that the Japanese house is the ultimate test for this person, because there's a potential that in their house they just bring their shoes to their bedroom and kick them off there, and that's just how it goes.
Right.
And there's plenty of places, in America especially, where that's a thing that can happen and nobody's going to say anything about it, and you can do that. But if it's, a cultural thing where it's you absolutely can't do that, does that adjust their behavior at all? Or are they so ingrained in the idea that it has to go sock, then shoe, then sock, then shoe, that they're going to bring their socks over to the doorway?
Yeah.
before they put them on. I would like to see the reactions from the people in that house as well, where it's like, is that person just like walking across and bringing their socks all the way
Yeah.
to the egg? Like, what are they doing?
Just the shocking thing is, if those people are surprised that they're doing it abnormally, I hate saying that word, but I want to say practically. Do they not know that it's an impractical way to do it? Maybe they hate socks and the way socks feel, but shoes are a must. I can see a situation where socks aren't necessary, but there's plenty of situations where you do need shoes. So maybe they just try to go barefoot for as long as possible, and because of that, I think
it's maybe just that they have a love for shoes, and so they can't imagine.
They got to get one on as quick as they can.
They're like, I gotta get to shoe space as quick as I can, and so it's like, okay, just get this.
Right.
Oh, phew. Half of me's in a shoe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Relief.
Yeah.
Finally.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, that's a weird way to put that stuff on. I think there's a lot of stuff like that with people where they do something that's not the most convenient.
I have a good story if you want to hear it.
I'll do my minor one.
Let's hear it, please. Mine's very minor too.
My wife will turn the lights off on the car every time she exits the car.
Right. Yep.
And if you were using an old style car, that would make total sense.
Right, but I'm assuming your wife isn't 92 years old.
This is the type of car where
it's automatic.
And our last car was like this as well. This is our second car in a row now like this, where the lights will turn themselves off.
Of course.
So all that you're doing is setting up a potential where you're driving without headlights and you should have headlights on. That's the only potential thing you're causing there. There's no like, oh man, thank God I didn't leave the headlights on. But yet, even after I pointed out that there was no reason to do that, she still does it every time.
Wait, are you talking about the headlights or the interior lights? Because I thought you were talking about interior lights.
No, I'm saying the headlights.
Oh.
Like on
I
the
thought you
newer
were saying
cars,
interior lights, which kind of makes sense because...
No, on the newer cars, the headlights will just time out and turn off after
Same thing
X
with the
amount of time
interior, though, too,
off.
right? Like you close the door, the interior, and then they slowly dim away.
It's like, you're right. It makes as much sense. She doesn't do that, luckily. That would drive me even more crazy. But yes, it's like someone putting every interior light into the off position instead of having it in the automatic position.
Right. I mean,
but she has no consistency because she'll leave the interior lights on, but she turns off the headlights.
Now you got her. You got her. Case closed.
Cars used to be that way. I get why you would start doing that, but why you would continue to do it,
But I'm assuming your wife
I don't
is
know.
way too young for that.
I mean, we've had plenty of cars where the headlights would stay on if you left the car.
That's fair. I mean, that justifies it. It's a traumatic experience you're trying to avoid. I just want it's a little twinge of OCD. Little twinge of OCD.
So what's the slight annoyance thing that you were thinking of?
This is I lived with a dude for years, and one day we're on the way out, and I had to put something in the mailbox, and so I put the letter in the mailbox, and close the mailbox and extend the flag, and he says, "Dude, you did it wrong." And I looked at him. What do you mean I did it wrong? He said, "You have to lean the letter up against the interior wall so it's standing up as much as possible." I looked at him and said, "What?" He said, "You laid it flat on the bottom of the mailbox. You can't do that, otherwise they won't pick it up." And I asked him, "Where did you learn this?" He said, My family taught me that if you don't do that, they don't pick it up. They only pick it up." And then I asked him immediately, "What the fuck is the flag for?" So he said, "Are my parents crazy?" And I said, "Yes, your parents are crazy. You can put the mail any way you want to in the mailbox. As long as the flag is up, they know. Take what's in there out of there."
Okay, so I have an explanation for this one.
Okay.
This one, I think I've got this one solved. I think, especially speaking as someone who is a parent, there's certain things that you do in this world out of courtesy instead of necessity. And I think sometimes when you're a parent, it's a pain in the ass to just explain that this is a courteous way to do things.
Right.
And so sometimes it's easier just to say, this is just the way you do this.
This is the way you do it. I totally get that.
Because then it makes the kid go, okay, that's just the way you do it. And they'll just do it every time, regardless of whether they're trying to be courteous or not.
Right.
And so it is a lot easier to grab an envelope out of the mailbox if it's standing up for the mailman. So it is a favor to the mail person.
Yeah.
So I think that it was just the parents going like, listen, jerk, this is how you put the mail in there.
I don't want to waste my goddamn time telling you why to do this. Just do it.
Yeah, and he believed like this is a necessity.
Right.
Because he probably pushed back on it, was just like, who cares? It's in there, it's in there. And they just didn't want to have the argument. And they were like, well, it just won't get picked up by the mailman. Do what you want. And then he's like, okay, fine, I'll, You know
what the funny thing is, though? Here's the
argument.
funniest thing, Raslo.
Yeah.
I always do it now. I always lean the envelopes up against it. Not because I'm worried they won't pick it up, but why not? Exactly what you said. It's like, it makes it stand out more. It's maybe easier. Although I've never talked to a postman or post person for them to say, oh, I love it. Because for all I know, maybe some of them are like, I just like to slap my hand in there.
Think so, because when you have like mail and the way they put it in the mailbox, and it's like the one thin postcards on the very bottom. Yeah. Instead of like the magazine. It's
like the playing card you can't get off the table.
Oh my God, it's so annoying. So
and then that just allows them to get their thumb behind it, so they can just.
And I know that they're in a rush to just like get this stuff dropped off. Oh, yeah. So I'm like, there's no way that this isn't a preferred thing of like, hey, easy. There's gaps on both sides. Totally easy for you to grab this. Mm-hmm. Just do it. And, I've never got a thank you, but I do think I deserve one.
I think in that way, you're a little bit of a superhero.
Right.
And speaking of superheroes, Raslo, I've got another thing that keeps me up at night.
Sure.
It's slightly inspired by the movie Mallrats, but superheroes.
Right. Yeah.
They're scientifically, if they had the superpowers, it would prevent them from having a sex life. I've thought about this. Can you think of any that I've thought of where if you have this power, that would prevent you from having a functional sex life?
I think most of them, you would need to have an altered sex life at the very least.
What do you mean by altered sex life?
There'd be certain things that would be off the table, not even because you're like, that's not something I'd like to do, but because it's something that you shouldn't do, because it's like, let's say like whenever like you, press on Wolverine's taint, like the, the knives come out of his hand. Yes. Yeah. It's like, even if he's like, I get that happens, but that's the best feeling.
Right.
You'd still be like, I get it, Wolvie, like, but I'm gonna just not do it. Like, sorry.
Right.
So that's when he's gonna be happy, when he's, with Sabretooth or someone else that
can totally handle it.
Like Deadpool, someone who can like do the healing thing, because then he's gonna be like, oh, fine, like, can you please? I've been going a decade now.
Yeah, munch that Grundle, please. I really want that Grundle. Just
get on the Grundle, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that Cyclops obviously you're gonna keep his visor on.
Right.
Nobody wants to be blasted to bits.
Yeah.
Superman, it's like a real control thing.
Well, here's the thing about Superman, Razzo, because I'm not the first person to think about this. But you have to realize that sperm have to penetrate an ovum. And that requires some velocity and effort of the sperm swimming. So that's an actual pressing mechanism. Now, everything about Superman is super, which would mean that if he was with his own Kryptonian, his sperm would have to be super as well, swimming at an accelerated rate and pushing at an immense force to penetrate that super ovum of that fellow Kryptonian.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is, if Superman had an apartment and he was feeling lonely someday, there would be holes as if he was shooting guns off in his apartment all over the drywall, let alone that happening inside of a partner. So he need to have sex with another super.
I've heard that. I think that was in Mallrats. I've heard that theory before, but I think that it's ignoring what is core to the character.
And that is?
And that is that Superman, above all else, he is a superpowered, character. He can, crush a truck under his fist should he choose to. He can do all these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you said he's super at everything, and more than anything, he's a Boy Scout.
So you think he's going to be super gentle?
I don't even, there's certain things where you're like, I'm saying that
He's super good at pulling out.
if anyone's going to have, orgasm control and go like, oh no, you first, you.
He's the best at edging. That's what you're saying. He's
Right,
super
I'm
edger.
saying that he's gonna wait to have his super release when it's safe. That's what I'm saying. There's no way that Superman's losing, no matter how sexy the woman or dude is, there's no way Superman's like losing himself enough that he's just gonna like let it go.
He has like a kryptonite fleshlight that he just goes ahead and tries to finish it too.
That's, well, I mean, I think it would be better. That's, if Superman was sub, then you have to imagine that he would have like a kryptonite like cock ring or something like that. And then it would be like, you're right, like it would control that flow. It would make it so he could feel the whips hitting him and everything else. So otherwise it's like the intensity that you'd have to be a superhero yourself. The intensity you'd have to have, if Superman likes it rough in bed, like the intensity you'd have to have. But I don't think he does like it rough because
nothing's rough to him though. He's too super.
I think that's the duality of Superman, is that he's this super strong character.
That begs another question.
Wants to be gentle,
Yeah, but what if he's so impervious that finally when Doomsday decks him in the face and he feels it, I wonder if that actually is like, I felt something down there. Like, oh, that was something different and something tantalizing.
Well, now that you're bringing that up, it's like making me think like, is it where if he doesn't feel pain that much, right?
Right.
Have they ever explained if that extends into pleasure as well?
I have heard that neurologically tickling is your body's inability to neurologically tell the difference between pain and pleasure. So the places that are ticklish are also very painful if pressed incorrectly or correctly based upon what your goal is. So I would think, there's definitely some, and maybe I'm crazy, but all of us have a little masochism in us, right? Where when you're turned on, I know that your nervous system behaves differently. So
that's true, yes.
Spanks when you're not turned on are just totally offensive. But when we are turned on, sometimes you're surprised, like, oh, hey, that was kind of nice. I like that. That was a good release.
Like I've had one girlfriend who like slapped me in the face outside of bed. And it was a very different reaction.
Than when you were, yes, exactly. Right.
I was not a fan.
Right.
So, all right. Well, so that I think everyone's safe is what we come down to on at least the Superman thing.
Incredible Hulk, though. Look at Bruce Banner, because you think if he gets angry, but I guess being turned on isn't necessarily angry. But
that soothes him,
I guess so. So maybe that's not, but that's a dilemma I haven't seen. I haven't seen anyone be like, "Oh, the Hulk's really hulking out."
The most obvious one is
blow Hulk.
Is Rogue obviously can't do anything sexual. That's gone over. She can't even kiss someone.
Right.
So
although latex,
you'd have to need a full body condom if you're doing anything with Rogue, which. She's cute and all, but I'm giving big nopers to that one for sure.
Yeah. I just feel sorry for superheroes though, because I'm realizing now, if you have a superpower, you have to learn how to control yourself at all times.
Right.
And I think part of the definition of some satisfying sexual interactions is the ability to totally let loose and let go of those inhibitions. But they always have to be inhibited.
Now you're getting me thinking, because when mutants go to the Xavier Institute in X-Men,
the danger room.
They go to the danger room.
And they put the pleasure droids out instead of the combat droids.
That's what I'm thinking, because why would they leave it? They're not going to go over it maybe in the comics or the cartoon, right?
Right.
But there's no way that after 9 p.m. or something, that they don't have special sessions going in the danger room that are like, all right, here's how you control yourself sexually, and they're doing full-on sexual scenarios, because otherwise you're setting these people out into the world and it's an unsafe situation. You would have to teach that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
So
you would.
if nothing else, now we could think about the danger room in that context. Maybe that was initially why it was built in the first place.
Yeah.
And then it just turned out that Xavier.
Maybe we should turn this into a combat training too.
All right. Someone hit the hidden book or whatever that opened up the danger room.
Or maybe, yeah.
And to cover himself, Professor X is
Yes,
like,
so
oh,
good.
it's my combat training room.
Right.
And they're like, is that why there's whips and chains and stuff here?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, children. Get in there and train.
Yeah, dodge those whips. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
In this situation, you've been restrained. What do you do now?
Yeah. I think that's now in my head. That is the canon for how the
Yes.
danger room got discovered.
I also see another whole sketch of someone who's a professor that you never see of in the comic books. Like, hey, I'm Professor Jones. Like, what do you do here? I'm the sex ed control and release teacher. Yeah, absolutely.
He's got the X right in the title of his organization,
Right,
so
yeah.
it makes sense.
Yeah.
Speaking of control,
Okay.
if you could have full control over the weather,
Okay.
would you use that control even if you knew that bending the weather to your will was going to bum out whoever likes whatever the opposite is of the weather that you're setting things up as?
I feel like this is a directed question to San Diego versus Mexico. Because San Diego's supposed to be a desert, but, oh, we've got so much water. And Mexico's like, well, we're kind of thirsty. Where's all our water, man? So would I? In some situations. It depends on the severity, obviously. But yeah, I would selfishly say, you know what? Someone could have crappy weather for a day because it's my birthday party and I want my birthday party to be special. So I'm going to have perfect weather. Or
would you hit every season or?
Yeah, I think I would only mess with it in special occasions. For instance, if I couldn't really sleep at night, thunderstorms. I want a summer thunderstorm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, something like
That'd
that.
be nice.
But if I know directly the consequences to it, where some third world country really needed that rain in order for the crops to grow, and I just ended up unknowingly murdering so many people, I'd probably be too scared. Again, you're talking to a vegan who's a conscientious consumer, so I think I'd use it very sparingly, but having that red shiny button that I could use, inevitably, I know
Too
I would
much
cave.
temptation.
Exactly. Eventually, I'd cave at some point.
So I have certain friends that I know would set it to be, summer year round, or whatever, because they have the seasonal depression and all that, which I didn't realize until I got really late in my life how many people have that.
So many.
It's kind of ridiculous.
It's a biochemical thing. I can geek out on you with my psychology education if you'd like.
I think that it's a unique advantage of having you on, so that I would love to hear it.
So melatonin is the hormone that makes us sleepy. So the more melatonin you have, the sleepier you get. In fact, some drinks have melatonin in it to help you sleep, like Bob Marley's Mellow Brew. By the way, they usually get that from sheep's brains, but what inhibits your own natural release of melatonin is sunlight, standing, and talking. Those are the three things that inhibit melatonin release. So ultraviolet light is really important. This is why people with seasonal affective disorder are particularly sensitive to the melatonin levels. And part of the treatment is having what they call a happy lamp, which is ultraviolet light, which suppresses their melatonin. Also, you shouldn't live where I'm from, Cleveland, because the weather is melatonin rich most of the time. We have like 2 seasons, rainy and snowy. So, that's the science behind seasonal affective disorder.
So is everyone impacted emotionally, but the levels vary so wildly that someone like myself just doesn't notice any difference in my mood in season, regardless of season or light exposure to light? But other people, their body either requires it or they get used to a certain level that it, negatively impacts. Like some people eat more, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's the amazing thing about how different all of us are, and we are biochemical creatures. I don't care who you are or how awesome you think your constitution is, but if I inject you with epinephrine, you're going to feel an adrenaline rush. You're going to Hulk out, because we're biochemical creatures.
Right.
But there's so many variations. It's the same thing with alcohol. There's so many differences in how people react to alcohol, so many differences in how people react to antidepressants and even sunlight in this case. So great question. You're a fine student, Razlo.
It's interesting. It's just interesting to me to. It made me wonder when I saw so many of my friends severely impacted by the winters and things like that. And it was not really talked about when you're a kid, and then you're seeing it in your adult life and hearing people talk about it. And then, there was a part of me that was just like, am I just not in tune with
Well, I think you are. Let me
what's
ask you
going
this,
on with my
Razlo.
body? Or
So
but I don't think that's it.
You're in the snow belt, yes?
Yeah, I live right in New Hampshire.
Right. So let me ask you, when the first really warm day happens in spring after a long winter, how do you feel once that sun finally comes out and it's the first warm day? Do you feel different then than you do the day before or the week before?
I have difficulties in heat.
Okay. So you associate it poorly with heat. So it's like, here comes the warmth.
So if it's not too hot and it's just like, it's comfortable weather out, then I enjoy it because it's something I haven't seen in a while.
Yeah.
If it's really hot and at that point there's no way to deal with it, like I can't jump in a pool or something like that because it's that point in the season where nobody
I definitely wasn't talking that hot, but the reason I asked is because most people don't realize how suppressed their system has been through melatonin until that first bright day, because it's almost this reawakening where people walk outside and they really hear the birds and they feel more awake and alive than they did the day before. And you see it all over the place. And it's not that everyone has seasonal affective disorder, but everyone is affected by melatonin. So that first really bright, warm spring day, you'll see a lot of happy people because it's finally that release of suppression. You're free in a lot of ways. It's very interesting. But you associate it with some other stuff, so it's interesting. You're an interesting individual, sir.
I think it's it is different for each person. I have issues with each season. There's elements that I really love about every season, and this is maybe just part of my personality as well. But there's parts that I love about every season, and there's parts that I dislike about every season. Which do you focus on more?
Are you one of the people that complain, it's too cold, it's too hot,
so
it's too rainy, it's too wet?
I don't really complain that much, and what'll happen is at the start of the season, I will be very appreciative for the change, whatever the change is.
4 seasons is nice so good,
to see it. And then when I get sick of it, I remind myself that it's a temporary thing that will pass, and that my future self in whatever other season would be happy to be where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And that kind of helps me stay, emotionally invested in every season that I'm in.
You do not strike me as a complainer in the slightest. In fact, I know in our personal interactions, I've had to ask you quite a few times to share with me your pain because you don't naturally. You're a very upbeat and giving individual. Right. So I appreciate that. You're definitely not. Very cool.
Well, I like that. I think that's probably the most, I'm not going to say the most serious discussion because we've had serious discussions before on the podcast, but that's probably the longest that we've gone into something, relating to psychological, discussions
Yeah.
and emotional discussions and
It
things
can't all
like that.
be superhero sex jokes and Hitler sandwiches.
Right. Well, I've had people say that they appreciate the podcast because they learn things and stuff like
Right.
that. And I wish I could say that was my objective. When it's really just, this is stuff that I find interesting, and by finding it interesting, maybe we accidentally learn something, but I'm definitely appreciative when it happens.
For me, it's just an excuse to hang out with you. I was so excited.
I appreciate, yeah, when you said you wanted to be on it, I was like,
course.
okay, absolutely.
Yeah.
Here's something.
Okay, hit me.
We were talking earlier about Super Sentai, and maybe this would have been better to put after that topic, a bit of more natural progression. But
No worries.
If you had gotten the offer to be a pilot in a giant combiner robot,
Yeah.
and because I know everyone would say this part they would want to control is the head.
The head. Right.
Everyone's going to say the head, right?
Because that's what we know. That's what we're comfortable
So
with.
you show up at the office and you're like, fuck yeah, I want to be this giant combiner robot pilot.
Right.
And they go, okay, cool. Leroy's on the head though. Then now you have to choose one of the, you've got, he's rushing you into battle. But you now have to pick one of the other parts. You're lucky enough to get there before any of the other
I get
applicants.
second pick.
You get second pick.
So many
Which-
questions. So many questions.
Which body part are you picking?
Right. Because is this like...
And to me, this is a Voltron style combiner robot.
all right, so my options are torso, right
head
arm,
is
left
taken.
arm.
We have left arm, right arm,
Okay.
left leg, right leg, and torso.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, because I'm wondering if it's like baseball in that left field is like left leg, where you can kind of just chill out and pick some flowers while everyone else is doing their thing, until all of a sudden there's a pop fly and you have to catch the ball and then you're on. So I might say left leg in the whole shunning responsibility answer.
I think that's a high responsibility. I disagree. That's a high responsibility
You
position.
think the left leg is more responsible? I mean, are we Voltron
So here's the
flying
thing. Here's the
around,
thing.
or-
I'm staying away from legs. Period. Because that's the coordination.
Yeah.
You have to have great teamwork with whoever is in the right leg, and if
Good
either of you
point.
fuck it up, that whole robot's going,
So
face
you're thinking
first.
left arm is the left field Voltron positions.
I mean, I have the area that I think is what you're talking about. And
Right.
that's torso.
No.
I think
My honest answer is I would be torso, because people
So
totally underappreciate the amount of power and care that has to go in your torso while you're in combat.
So I think, I was going to pick torso as well. So I find it interesting that you picked torso. I think as a kid, and so it's interesting to think about the differences of how you think as you get older. But
Yeah.
I think as a kid, I was always like, I want to be head or arms. Like that was always my thought. Like right arm because I'm
Right-handed, right? I gotcha.
So I was going to be right arm or head, and that was always. And I was like, must be lame being one of the other positions. Like in my
Right.
head, that it was like I don't know how anyone could argue this. Now me being older,
Exactly. Keep going. I like what you're
and
saying. You're singing
I'm
my tune.
going like, what is? And I don't feel like this is portrayed that much in giant robot stories, but in my head, this is how it works. And it's like, I feel like when you go to play a class in a first-person shooter or something, there's the support classes, and then there's the attacker classes, right?
Dude, this
And
is
so
exactly where I was going to go with this. You're blowing
Really?
my mind. Keep on going.
So the arms
This is
are very
fucking crazy, dude, because I was going to use the exact same analogy.
So you got the head that's the captain, right?
Yep.
And that's telling everyone what to do.
Yep.
I'm kind of relieved a little bit after my initial disappointment of not being the head, because I'm
Right.
like,
The responsibility.
okay,
Right.
responsibility's off of me, And then I'm thinking about the arms, and I'm like, the attacker position. It's
DPS,
like
damage per
always, yeah, you're always, any hit that gets in or doesn't get in is your fault. Even if the legs weren't getting in a position or whatever, they can always push back like, oh, you didn't strike right or whatever.
Yep. Yeah.
You're also always out in danger as well, because you're throwing your body in this robot arm towards the danger. Every single time in order to attack, you're throwing your body towards the danger. And so, obviously the torso could potentially get hit a lot too, but I think it's probably going to be pretty well, protected. And I think the arms and things are going to try to keep damage away from the torso and stuff like that. So I see the torso as kind of I would be kind of like the secondary eyes to the captain. Like, I'm keeping a lookout as to what's going on.
Right.
I'm checking in with my teammates to see what they need. If there's anything I can help, can we divert power?
Yeah.
Can we, and so I'm there as like this emotional support, as well as secondary set of eyes, the co-pilot.
So this is the
to
support class in the World of Warcraft terms, is what you're saying, where it's your job to make sure everybody's doing their thing and staying okay. You're following orders, but you're the heart of the situation.
Yeah, and like when the captain maybe doesn't have the best tact and tells people do this right away or whatever, or strike harder or what, I'm trying to still get that message across. You heard him, let's make sure we show him how badass that, right? I would retranslate his or hers very harsh sentiments. I'm trying to bring the team together is what I would want to do in that role. So that's why as weird as it is, because I didn't think I was going to say it when I wrote the question down.
But torso?
I think I'd be torso.
I think so too. And after talking about it, I had the same justification that you're the support class, making sure everyone's okay. But when I'm thinking about it right now, I think I'm going to change my justification, because the head tells everyone what to do, but the torso is the one that does it. Because when you're punching, you can't really punch with your right arm if your torso is angled away from the right.
So you're kind of sliding.
Yeah, so with the legs, everything, you're just moving the torso, directing it. Because imagine
you could spin, actually now that you think about it, right? The torso probably has a spin function, right?
Yeah.
Where you're spinning yourself left or right. That's, helping you to be able to see. So my second set of eyes are oh crap, we need to be looking in this direction. Maybe the head's not turned there, so I can compensate and turn the torso to kind of try to get everyone looking and moving in the direction that they need to be.
Yeah. I
can't believe that we
both chose torso.
Both chose torso.
Yeah, I think the torso is the true heart of it. I think the head is for the arrogant leader, let them have it, but the real hero is the torso. Kind of like Sam in The Lord of the Rings. Everyone gives Bilbo credit. No, Sam literally carried freaking, not Bilbo, Frodo, up to the mountain and whatnot. Sam is the real hero of The Lord of the Rings, but Frodo gets so much of the credit, and that's bullshit. It's the torso.
I think the engine and stuff is probably there too, and the power reserves and all that. And so I'm switching off, okay, let me draw some power from the arm to get it over here because they've exerted too much power on the legs. Or
I still think of just the left arm just smoking weed. I'm gonna punch him. Yeah, that was awesome. And the person in the head is do this, come on. It's just basically throwing shade everywhere.
Yeah.
And the person in the torso is running around like some Muppet while there's a fire.
Yeah, fire's going, putting them out. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So the unsung hero, the torso. So in Voltron, it's the black cat.
We'll see if we could agree here or not. I haven't fully written down. I intended to write down, and I didn't have the time, my answers to this. But if we, there's a lot happening with sexualities and things like that.
Oh, yes.
And let's say that everyone's let's just start over.
Yes.
I think people will be more accepting if we list sexualities as ice cream flavors.
Oh, man.
And so if you're on the committee to pick the ice cream flavor that represents each sexuality,
Right.
which ice creams would you choose?
I think the obvious choice would be vanilla for heterosexuality,
Right.
as far as it's just almost inherently missionary vanilla. Just
Right.
it's a necessity for reproduction here. Let's not really talk about vanilla.
I agree there. Okay, so we're in agreement on that one.
Man, this
I want to ask this because this is an obvious and a jokey response. but
right.
still,
I'm just
think
wondering how
we're-
much trouble
I
we're going
think-
to get in here, but keep on going. I've got
I think
your
that
back.
I think we're not. To be clear, if it's not already, we're very supportive of every sexuality.
Please,
it's just
yes, absolutely.
we have been assigned ice creams.
And I think also that goes to
For bisexual, there's one I've got very clearly in my head. It's kind of the jokey answer, but I think it works when I think about it more. But I'd love to hear if you're thinking the same thing I'm thinking. What flavor is bisexual?
well, it'd have to be a swirl of some sort, right?
So I was thinking Neapolitan.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking more it would be like a swirl or like a rainbow. I don't know my ice cream flavors enough because I'm out of the game being vegan.
Neapolitan, the whole point of Neapolitan ice cream, right?
Is a little bit of everything, yes.
Is like it's got
It's got the vanilla, it's got the chocolate, it's got the strawberry.
Right, and you're just like on any given night or all at once, you can be like,
Dude.
I want this flavor. So I think like if it's, and I bet you if you look online, there's some
Someone
bisexual
has
that
done
probably already
this.
claimed. I cannot be the first person. Well, maybe I'm the first person to ask what's.
So with your logic,
Sexualized ice cream, but,
and
yeah.
Again, I'm glad we preface this with support all we can,
Right.
and hopefully we're not offending anyone here. But it sounds like
Right.
if vanilla is heterosexuality, I
Right.
would say chocolate is gay, and
Okay.
strawberry would be lesbian, and then
Oh, because then the Neapolitan would bring it all together.
I was making a little bit of a butt joke with the chocolate.
Oh,
And then the strawberry is another inherent joke. It's really insensitive. We're getting into weird
I
territory.
thought you.
There
thought
was
you
my
were just-
presidency, by the way. So
See, like it totally went over my head. I thought you were just trying to
justify the three
make
flavors.
the Neapolitan make sense, and I was like, "Oh man, totally! You fit your." I figured it was like a puzzle. I was like, "You're solving this. This is totally." And then you brought up the other. that I wasn't
chocolate
thinking of,
represents
so.
butt stuff, and pink represents vagina stuff.
I think it works even outside of that. Like chocolate's like
Right.
is indulgent. There's some people where it's like this is too sweet or they can't handle it or whatever.
I really
Strawberry,
like this actual analogy because there's so many flavors where you could have
Yeah.
vanilla with chocolate chips. You could have vanilla with strawberry
Right,
sprinkles. You
right.
could have so many. So
Right,
it
right,
does
right.
definitely go along with the spectrum of sexual orientation.
Yeah,
I like
and
that.
then I don't. I'm trying to think of what you would say for like.
Mint chocolate chip?
For like, I'm trying to think. So whatever we hit bisexual. We haven't hit pansexual.
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
I think that's an
That would
interesting
be like
debate
Ben and
too.
Jerry's, right?
Well, a lot of people say
Pansexual?
bisexual and pansexual are the same thing, but I know other people say
They say it's not.
bisexual. You're
There is a
saying
differentiator. I've read a differentiator. There is a differentiator between the two.
I
So
think
I
there's-
think we need a separate ice cream flavor. I say Ben and Jerry's, some Ben and Jerry's flavor,
Okay.
where it's like there's there's a lot that can be going on. If you choose to, but then there's kind of more tame Ben and Jerry's flavor. So maybe just like Ben and Jerry's overall
What about
is pansexual.
what about asexual?
Asexual.
Is it no ice
sherbet-
cream at all, or is it just
it's
sugar-free?
Asexual is sherbet.
Sure. Yeah, that's good call. Yeah, I agree. I concur, sir. I concur. Yeah.
All right, so I don't think that anyone can argue with us.
Oh, I'm
I think
sure plenty of people can argue with us plenty. Leave the comments below after you pound the subscribe button. Hit that bell icon.
Yes, thank you.
No problem. Yeah, please disagree.
one last thing, if we haven't already worn out our welcome, let's try to solve an issue in this world.
You're talking about the lighting issue?
Before we go, and that is the straw problem. Everyone's talking about it, the straw problem.
Oh, okay, yes.
There is, an issue. Straws don't recycle that great. And, but on the other hand, people really hate paper straws because they say, it makes stuff taste weird. It gets flimsy after a few sips. Other people say the bleaching process to make them is excessive, or it doesn't recycle correctly, so it's not solving the issue anyways.
Yeah, it's making it worse.
And then there's people who say bring around a metal straw.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot of people who say that's way too much effort. I'm not bringing a metal straw everywhere I go.
Right.
So if you're in charge, you've inherited, the world's biggest straw manufacturer, and you're trying to crack this nut, where are you telling the team to go? Where is the solution to this?
So it's tough with fast food place because you leave, but in the cafeteria setting or restaurant setting, have steel straws because you already have silverware. It could be part of the silverware.
Sure. Yeah. Fine dining, steel straws.
Steel straws. But when it comes to the fast food restaurant, man, that is real difficult to answer. And I don't think I have all the information to do that, because it seems like no matter what solution you come up with, people will tear it apart. Because people, like you mentioned, very, very learned, sir, that people have argued that paper actually contributes more to the problem because of various reasons, that it leaves a bigger carbon footprint to make paper than plastic, etc.
Right.
So you got something for me?
I'm going to say you could go with...
sippy cups?
They have some places where they'll do pasta straws.
Ooh, that's interesting.
But I don't know the total downsides to that, other than obviously it would get a little slimy after a while.
Is there gluten in it?
I mean, I think that's probably an optional thing.
I only use gluten straws because I love it.
I only use gluten-free pasta straws.
Yeah.
So pasta straws seems like an option, and then there's got to be some other pretzels or some other food type that you could use, that you could keep rigid, that you could keep for at least a good amount of time.
Yeah.
And that it wouldn't ruin the average drink. And I mean, a bonus would be if you could eat it, but even if you couldn't eat it or you didn't eat it, like the pasta when you're maybe not eating at the end.
Right.
But if that's going, if you throw a piece of pasta on the ground, if an animal doesn't eat it, it's rotting, it's not going to take that, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
So that would be the direction that I would personally head in, is let's figure out if it comes down to coffees need X type of food straw, sodas need a different type of food straw.
I love this idea of having a straw connoisseur, almost like a wine connoisseur, where people actually specialize it in upper level restaurants, 5-star restaurants. They come in and say, oh, for this meal, I really recommend the pretzel straw. The saltiness goes so well with the Coca-Cola.
I've had before at really indulgent places where they have, what is the name of the, I'm going to blank on the name of it, but when someone gets a parfait or something like that at a fancy place, and they have it's like the tubular baked good.
The tubular baked good.
It usually has a swirl in it. They'll have it sticking, if you got a Pepperidge Farm,
you talking about a peppermint stick or
I don't remember what the name of it is.
Candy cane? What are you talking about?
It's something it's basically it's a baked good, but
baked.
It's hard and it's tubular. And it usually has a swirl in it. And there's a real name for it that I'm blanking on right now.
And it's not just a baked straw. It's nothing.
It's not meant to be a straw. No, you're supposed to munch on it like a cookie. But I've had places where it's either that or a pretzel, and they coat the inside with hardened chocolate.
Ooh.
and then you sip through the pretzel straw, and then at the end you can just eat it. And so I think for anything that is like indulgent, even a coffee or something like that.
What's a fart when you've already shit your pants? You might as well indulge. So drink that horrible coffee.
Pretzel straws, I think, would be really awesome, or similar type of baked goods straws.
That's interesting.
And then yeah, like pasta straws for other places or other things or whatever. And I think that's the direction to head into. And also, I mean, some people are going to complain about food waste, and I get that. I think at a certain point, you just need to accept some amount of downside to the concept of straws, or you just need to make a cover to cups that
sippy cup. Some type of
adult. Every place has adult sippy cups,
right?
And we just are like, this is where we are now. That's what we're doing now.
Yeah,
and
maybe they build something in the structure, because they've done that with spray bottles nowadays, where instead of having the straw to the spray bottle, it has a mechanism where it's built into the actual body, where there's a built-in straw, basically. So why not do that with some of the cups? Or
I agree.
Here's the wildest idea: just don't use straws. Like, if we get rid of straws, they are a luxury, really. And I usually don't even use straws. Most of the time when I drink, no straws. Even at fast food joints, if I get a water or whatever and I'm getting out of there, I just pop the top and start slurping it.
I don't think it's that big of a deal, but there's people who...
Straw fanatics?
But also, I've heard some people say, people who are like differently abled, that they've kind of...
Good point. No, you're totally right, because I've thrown my back out before.
Yeah.
And when I throw my back out, I can't move for 2 days.
Oh, so the straw helps. Yeah. That's one complaint they had about the paper straws as well, is that they don't bend, like, because most or a lot of straws will have like the little, like, the elbow, for lack of a better term. And paper straws don't have that, and so if you are a person who can't, get your head up at the height it needs to be over the cup,
very good point,
it makes it so that they can't use it. So
you're so smart,
I guess
Razlo.
The pretzel straws. But you can bend a pretzel. It's just that you would have, the only problem is that you can't have it be manipulated. The height can't be manipulated. So it's still not ideal
when I'm
in
thinking
every
of a
situation.
Pretzel straw, I'm thinking of a hard straw, but you're saying once you prime it and start getting it soggy,
no,
then
I'm saying there's no reason, when I was thinking about it with this particular issue in mind, like someone being like, hey, I need it out of... And you could have a pretzel that's bent. Obviously.
Yeah, because pretzels are pretzeled.
But you can't have it so that it then moves after. So
it's not adjustable.
I guess it's not going to be. And I guess at a certain point, it's just we can't solve every single potential straw issue.
Man.
So we just need to say, hey, like, we put a slight bend on our pretzel straws. Hopefully that's good enough for as many people as possible. And if not, I guess bring your collapsible...
How about this? This is another idea.
Straw.
I am going to assume that all the straws we'll ever need have already been made, and there's some warehouse somewhere full of straws that have yet to be released. So it's kind of one of these conspiracy theories where we say, release the documents, but instead we say, just release the straws and stop manufacturing new straws and just start releasing the old straws until we run out. I don't know.
Aren't they starting to ban straw use in California?
I wouldn't be surprised. I think so.
I think. And I think that's going to start happening everywhere else eventually. So it's an issue that has to be gotten in front of. But I think people see it as a negative right now. But I think if you had a tasty straw that you were eating after you had your drink, you'd be psyched that...
You'd have to charge for it, though, is the big issue. People are like, I don't want to pay for my straw.
No, but it comes with the drink. It would no longer be in the dispenser.
Right.
It would just come with the drink.
But then you're inflating the price of the drinks.
Well, they're gonna... The cost of the straws is in there regardless. So it's just a matter of whatever price increase having food straws brings in, but it'll be something that goes across every food item because it's the cost of the store as opposed to
associated with a particular drink. So you're just going to see the prices go up and be like, oh, the prices just went up, as they do anyway.
Speaking of straws, is that what you're twisting down below? What are you doing under the covers
Sorry.
there?
I shouldn't be when I'm on a podcast, just be playing with
it's a pen. I'm so sorry. I thought it was a straw.
But I meant to stop at least 3 or 4 different times. I stopped popping the cap on it, but then I kept twisting it. So if I've annoyed anyone with the audio for the last 10 minutes, then
I just now noticed when I looked over under the covers. I was like, what are you doing down there?
It's my non-admittance that I guess I need a fidget cube of some kind. But I think that we've now solved
all the world's problems.
All the things that were plaguing me, at least for this week, so that I can, go to sleep. And I'm happy that you joined me in bed. I will not tell your wife. And I'm happy that I was able to answer some of your questions as well, and that you were able to even bring in your expertise, your professional expertise, which it was unexpected but amazing.
Thank you so much.
So thank you for spending time in bed with me.
No problem. Anytime that my wife's out of town, you got it.
All right. Well, let's make the most of it and go to sleep now.
Good night.
Thanks for checking out Keeping Me Up. I'd like to thank our guest today, Alan Gerding. Please give his podcast Tuesday Night Games a listen for more fun. Want to support the games, video, or audio content I make? You can donate as much or as little as you'd like on patreon.com/GameYayFun. That's Patreon, patreon.com/GameYayFun. You can check out new episodes broadcast in video form on twitch.tv/GameYayFun, and an audio version is available of every episode on anchor.fm/GameYayFun, or just search GameYayFun in your podcast service of choice. Don't have any money, but still want to support the show? If you have Amazon Prime, you get a Twitch Prime subscription for free. You can use that for GameYayFun on Twitch and give some of Jeff Bezos' money to me. He's got enough. Let me know how you like the show by messaging me on Twitter at Razlo, R-A-Z-L-O, and I'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode of Keeping Me Up and a new guest. Thanks for your time, and I hope I kept you gruntled. And remember, do something kind for yourself and someone else every day. Good night. Special thanks to music-note.jp for providing the theme song to Keeping Me Up with the track name Desire Moon.